Good morning from Belfast. I am at the Royal Ulster Rifles Museum, and technically it's closed today, it's Sunday, but the curator, Mr. Gavin Glass, has arranged so that I can meet Grandpa Albert here. Shall we go in? Grandpa Albert! So I am very happy because, look everyone, ta-da! I am wearing the rifle green to match Grandpa Albert, right? This is Grandpa Albert. He is 9. How old are you, Grandpa Albert?
91.
91. He's the only one Korean War veteran that I'm meeting in all of Northern Ireland, and he shared wonderful memories and stories about his experience in the Korean War, which I'll get to share with you later. I have a very lengthy interview, but right now we're going to go inside the museum where Mr. Glass will be giving just us an overview of the rifle, the Royal Rifles regiment in which he served. So Mr. Gavin Glass is waiting for us here. So thank you so much again for your generous hospitality on a Sunday, everybody on a Sunday in a museum, public museum. I am very, very blessed, very grateful. So can you give us an overview of the regiment?
Yes, well, the overview of the regiment will take me a bit of time, but really the regiment started back in 1783 and the formation of regiments of foot to fight Napoleon. Right. Eventually, we changed to become rifles in 1881, the Royal Irish Rifles, and in 1921 we become the Royal Ulster Rifles, which Albert joined.
In 1921.
21. Both battalions and fought in the Second World War as Ulster Rifles, one by air and one by sea. And then we become one battalion in 48, 1st Battalion. And then
in 1948.
1948, we were down to one battalion.
Wow, so it was soon after you became one battalion when you, the battalion was shipped to Korea.
Yes, indeed. And this is a small part of the Korean exhibition that we have here. Obviously, the museum tells the story of the regiment dating back to 1783 to 68. But if you look at the top, you'll see a very famous painting. This is the withdrawal from the engine, and the mortar platoon actually covered the withdrawal from the engine with a Lieutenant Mole, who actually had the mortar platoon. And you can see the carriers going back, the centurions going back, and they were actually retreating away from the engine.
And I've never seen that picture, nor the frame below.
The picture's called Crash Action at Engine. The thing below it with Her Majesty on it, they were all made in Hong Kong. A lot of the lads got these made in silk in Hong Kong. The picture to the left of it, that is General Majura. Now, he was a young lieutenant in Korea and was captured and spent a lot of time as a prisoner of war. And I'll tell you a wee bit about his prayer book later on. The other one here, this is Brigadier McCord, who won an MC at Happy Valley as a young lieutenant. And then with various pictures of the boys arriving home in Belfast. Different stories, also forgotten heroes, different stories. This is the prayer book. This was written by an American soldier and Lieutenant Majura. The original is in St. Anne's Cathedral. It was written in rice paper, and it's in St. Anne's Cathedral. This is just a copy of it. So each day they held prayers, and they had different services for Easter, Christmas, all in the prisoner of war camp. The original's in St. Anne's, just in the cathedral.
Wow. I couldn't but help notice the
Korean flag, the North Korean flag.
North
That was found in a house in Seoul when we went back into Seoul. So when we recaptured Seoul again, that was found in the house. These weapons here, the first weapon was a Russian weapon used by the Chinese, and it had a folding bayonet. Unfortunately, it's missing, but it was quite vicious, and the bayonet was triangular, and you couldn't you couldn't heal the wound. The second one is a Chinese copy of a Russian weapon, and you normally see them with the round magazine on them, but the Chinese preferred that type of magazine because it didn't jam. The third weapon is Colonel Charlie's rifle. Now, Colonel Charlie didn't like carrying the big rifle that they were issued with, so he swapped it for an American M1 carbine.
Wow.
So that belongs to Colonel Charlie, but we don't tell anybody that.
Okay, don't tell anybody.
The bottom one is a Mosin Nagant, which was issued to the North Koreans and the Chinese, and it's a Russian rifle as well.
So are these artifacts actually donated by the
weapons
veterans?
were brought back by the regiment, and then they were decommissioned. Most of these things were given by people who had actually donated them.
Wow.
The little Korean flag, it was signed by all the officers just before the Battle of Happy Valley.
That is amazing. And one of them must have drawn this, right?
Yeah.
Wow. So this is the original.
That's original. That's original signatures of the officers in the battalion just before Happy Valley.
Wow.
That's the ambassador's medal that you seen earlier with the little miniature. The British Korean, UN Korean. These are medals issued to Chinese volunteers that fought for the North Koreans.
That's amazing.
And this is a book made up by Captain Solly. He found all these propaganda leaflets from the Chinese and Korean as well, North Korean as well. So it's a book of that. That's a little map of the Battle of Imjin.
Miss Charlie, I want everybody to introduce Miss Charlie, who is the daughter of Mr. Colonel Charlie, who passed away a month ago. But he told Miss Charlie why Happy Valley, which is one of the major battles, is called Happy Valley. Because I was wondering, suffered 157 casualties, and it seemed a little bit ironic to call it Happy Valley. But why was it called Happy Valley?
Well, it was called Happy Valley because the regiment had already given the name to the area, because they had, when they arrived in Korea and Busan, they had the early November 1950. Albert was one of those on the troop ship that came in, and they were moved. It was thought the war was nearly over, and they were moved up towards what is now North Korea, by train, by truck and things, and they were basically pushing the forces, the opposing forces north. Suddenly, the Chinese communists, they got up to the Yellow River, and suddenly the Chinese communists troops were involved, and they started moving down, and this was early December, down the Korean peninsula, and the first time that the battalion was able to stop and have a proper meal and know they weren't going to have to pack up and move on at any minute was in this valley just north of Seoul. And consequently, I think it was the colour sergeant, Shifty Dawson, don't know what his real name was, but Jack Dawson. He was the one, I think, who gave the nickname Happy Valley, because at last he was in charge of the cooking, and at last they could do the cooking without being bothered by too much. Another nickname the troops gave it was Compo Canyon. Compo was named for the food, little tins of food they were given. And so Compo Canyon, Happy Valley, was to do with food. That's why that valley was given that name.
Mr. Glass, can you tell us, I mean, I know almost 200 years of history, but what would you say is one of the major accomplishments of the Rifles Regiment in Korea?
In Korea, well, we were the only Irish regiment over there for a start, and the lads came from the north, the south, and we took a lot of Enniskillens in, we took a lot of Fusiliers in, so they were all Irish that went out at that time. We lost so many men. The Battle of Happy Valley although Albert has talked about it, the real reason we lost so many men, and Albert hit upon it, was because when the Chinese had started to come down, the Americans on one flank had been ordered to move at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So they moved. The Northumberland Fusiliers on this flank were told to move at 6 o'clock. They moved. The Chinese were watching this, so the Chinese infiltrated both flanks of the rifles. Captain Charlie's platoon was the farthest platoon out, and he was ordered back. And he just got back whenever the ambush happened. Now, the ambush was virtually 2 kilometres long. That's how many, and they just kept cutting the convoy in pieces. And then there were small groups left like that, surrounded and fought to the end until they were captured or killed.
Well, despite the odds, I know that it was a major battle which was significant in the entire war, this battle.
Yeah.
So the contributions are immense. And last but not least, Grandpa Albert. What is the significance? Because I know even in the Commonwealth, you know, everybody has different color, but why does the rifles, why is this called the rifles green?
Pardon?
Why is this color the rifles green?
Well, it's Irish green sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
The green of Ireland, you know. The Emerald Isle.
Yes, I just want you to tell it to people.
I think the better to look at it, if you look in this cabinet here, you see the British Army wore red, red tunic,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Even in America.
Yes.
Whenever in the rifle regiments were formed, and the rifle regiments took green to move forward in front of the red lines. So it was actually a bit of camouflage first of all.
That is very true.
Yeah.
So when we turned from the 83rd, 86th to the Royal Irish Rifles, we become a rifle regiment. So we took on the rifle green,
Rifle green.
Yes.
which we carried right through. So if you even look at the rifles in the British Army now, called the Rifles, 1st and 2nd Battalion Rifles, they were rifle green.
Yes.
So they
They're
were
less conspicuous.
they were light infantry, and they marched faster than everybody else because they had to get out in front of everybody.
Well,
They marched faster than anybody.
Oh yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you're just saying there. Our regimental march, normal regimental march is 120 paces to a minute. Sorry, 140 to the minute. But the rifles 120. Now, if you ever watch the Gurkha, you ever see the Gurkhas? The Gurkhas go.
That's the way the rifles went.
Oh.
So all rifle regiments march faster than a normal British infantry regiment.
Why do you think? What do you think the secret is to the fast walking?
Get there faster, fight.
Get there fast.
Get in and get the fight over and
Tradition.
done with.
Tradition.
No, to
It's
walk
tradition
fast.
to get in and fight. The other major battle we had was Imjin, was again another part. Everybody talks about the Imjin River and the Gloucesters. The reason the Gloucesters were captured was, and quite obviously because of where we were holding blocking positions and ordered forward. The Belgians who were there had fell back, and the Chinese got between the Belgians and us, came round and cut us in two, captured half the rifles. The other half just about fought their way out, but they completely surrounded the Gloucesters, who were up in a big curve of the Imjin River. But it's always known as Gloucesters being there. They don't think we were there, but it's because we were in blocking positions and then we went up. But we were cut in two by the Chinese as well. But the Gloucesters were captured virtually intact because of where they were.
And what
But again,
happened,
it's
what
just
happened to
infiltration.
Gloucester? Sorry, what happened to Gloucester was they were annihilated, and the next morning they tried to get in supplies to them, and the Sea Beverly aircraft came in with supplies. It was a foggy morning, and I'll never forget this. Terrible foggy morning, and they couldn't find the drop zone to reinforce the Gloucester. It was just a catastrophe, you know.
Well, I do want everybody to note that the Irish have contributed significantly in the Korean War, and the reason why I'm here is to make sure that these unsung heroes are remembered, properly honored. As you all know, the Korean War is called the Forgotten War, but that doesn't mean we should forget the heroes that fought them, and especially of the Irish and your father, for their sacrifices and the 157 men who died. And thank you so much for not only opening the museum for us today, but really being the protector of the memories, because this is all not only just history but stories that should be passed down. And I just appreciate you so much
That's my
for
pleasure.
being the
My pleasure.
keeper
My pleasure.
and the guardian of
Yeah.
their sacrifices.
Yes. No, we will never forget these.
Yes, thank you. So everybody, we're going to go to the memorial and pay tribute and lay some flowers. So I'll see you there. Bye.
You see when we were going out on the ship,